Hi everyone, I'm Caroline. Growing up, wasn't it great when you had a family friend or relative visiting who could challenge your parents or guardian on a rule they had for you? Maybe you had an uncle, aunt, grandparent, or other family member or friend who did things just a little differently than your parents or guardians. Anytime they'd come around, if it was bedtime or if you wanted an extra sweet treat, they might just make the difference in you getting your way. It's nice when power is separated, isn't it? Not all in the hands of one or two people. The framers of our government also knew how important it was to separate and balance power, and that, plus even more, will be the subject of today's lesson. Today, we will analyze the articles within the U.S. Constitution in terms of its principles and its purposes. Alert! This is a 3-for-1 alert. These upcoming terms are important. You may want to grab your pen. The Constitution splits government into 3 branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. The executive branch enforces the law by creating and administering policy. The legislative branch creates laws. The judicial branch hears disputes and reviews laws as well as actions taken by the executive branch in order to ensure they are constitutional. To balance and separate the power of government, each branch checks and balances the other branches. For example, the legislative branch can override a presidential action taken by the executive branch by passing a law that negates or voids the action. The executive branch can veto a law made by the legislative branch. The judicial branch can declare acts of the legislative and executive branches unconstitutional. Rewind! A veto makes a law null and void or inactive, as if it was never passed. Throughout the history of American government, the principles of separation of powers and checks and balances have guided the nation through many moments of crises while still protecting individuals from excessive abuse by the government. There have been numerous times when the tension between individual rights and the public good have encountered the checks that occur between the separated powers of government. In 1820, for instance, Congress passed the Missouri Compromise. It drew a line across the nation and declared no territories north of it could have slaves, while those south of it could. In 1857, Dred Scott, a slave that had been brought north of the line, sued for his freedom since he was now living in a free state. In this landmark case, Scott v. Sanford, the Supreme Court stated that no slave could be a citizen and that the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional. This outcome is an example of checks and balances, because it demonstrated the judicial branch's power to check a congressional law it deemed unconstitutional. However, Congress can check and balance the judicial branch by changing the Constitution. Let's look at what happened after Scott v. Sanford. The issue of slavery was the pivotal contradiction in American society that even the system of checks and balances designed by the framers could not resolve the tension. The Dred Scott case and other events in the 1850s led to the outbreak of the Civil War, since the main compromise, which held the balance between North and South, had been destroyed. But the war itself would continue the revolution to change society and would eventually create a broader definition of the people. The Civil War then led to a number of changes to the Constitution that overturned landmark cases such as Scott v. Sanford. The 13th Amendment abolishes slavery except in case of a crime. The 14th Amendment applies protections to individuals through the Due Process Clause and Equal Protection Clause. Because of these amendments, no state can deny a citizen of the U.S. equal protection of the law or the due process of law. So in an effort to establish a public good that benefits a larger group of people, the nation further protected individuals from oppressive government. These principles of checks and balances and separation of powers helps the Constitution remain a living document that can allow the people to grow, both as individuals and as a public, in order to change society. this last part of today's lesson, we will look at some other key principles the Constitution has, which help navigate the tension between protecting the individual and providing for the public good. First off, Article 6 of the Constitution declares the Congress cannot establish an official religion. This establishes what is called separation of church and state, an important principle of liberalism. The state remains secular or non-religious, even if the society itself is deeply religious. The Establishment Clause prevents the destruction of public good by religious authorities and attitudes. The First Amendment to the Constitution states that individuals are free to exercise their religious beliefs. The two, Article 6 and the First Amendment, together, protect the public from religious fervor and persecution and protect the individual's right to practice their religious beliefs. One of America's founding fathers, James Madison, once wrote in a letter to a friend, "We are teaching the world the great truth that governments do better without kings and nobles than with them. The merit will be doubled by the other lesson that religion flourishes in greater purity without than with the aid of government." Another important principle of democracy is the rule of law. It means that law, rather than a person or group, governs society. Law is meant to represent the will of the people, a people that is always expanding. Article 6 states that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. This means no branch, group, or individual is above the federal Constitution, not even federal law. We can change the Constitution or interpret it differently, but it, the Constitution, is the governing body. Finally, as a last important protection from too much government, Amendment 10 in the Bill of Rights states that all powers not granted to the federal government by the Constitution are reserved to the states and the people. Further, the Supremacy Clause, combined with Amendment 10, creates a further separation of powers known as federalism. This combination allows for differences among the people and states while still protecting a national public good. Alert! We have ourselves a new word! Let's take a look. Federalism is the division of government into state and federal levels, in which power is divided and shared between the two. The Constitution establishes the people as the rulers of this new nation, people who are allowed the freedom to change society through the Constitution's system of individual protections and powers. These protections and powers are in place so that individuals can go about promoting the public good. To grant these powers, the framers created a living constitution that could remain intact as it moved into the future. By separating powers between different branches, the Constitution ensured that time would be taken to think about the laws which were being considered, and to pass only new laws that had gone through a rigorous process of drafting and debate. Kind of like when your parent or guardian would argue with that family friend about letting you have one more scoop of ice cream. Having powers separated can be glorious, can't it? Recap! Today we learned that the Articles of the Constitution structure the government into 3 branches that help to limit the power of government. We also learned that each branch has powers that check and balance the other branches of the federal government. That's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we will explore the political changes that took place during the American Revolution, as well as the debates that took place over the drafting of the Constitution. Until then, don't forget to vote, debate, and participate. Hey, hey.